Story 1. Am I the a-hole for bringing my entire family to the restaurant where my girlfriend was working as a server in order to meet her? I, 24 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 26 female, for several months. She works as a server at a local popular restaurant. My family has been here for a few weeks now. I have 2 older sisters, 31 and 27, as well as 3 nieces and mother and father who are both in their late 50s. My girlfriend doesn't have a good relationship with her own parents and has expressed envy over me having a good relationship with mine. I've asked her a few times to come with me to meet my family, but she's always had an excuse why she couldn't. So anyway, last weekend, I brought my whole family, my parents as well as my sisters and their husbands and their kids, to her restaurant. I requested a table in her section. When she saw us, I could tell that she was taken aback, but she did her job well, and even took the time to talk to us all and get to know my parents, sisters, brothers-in-law, and nieces as well as she could while still doing her job and taking care of her other customers. Upon leaving, my entire family expressed that they really liked her, that I was lucky, and that they were glad to have met her. They also left her a huge tip. I thought the whole thing was fine. However, after she got off her shift, my girlfriend texted me and said, "Thanks a lot, you jerkwad." I called her and she went off on me about how I shouldn't have blindsided her by bringing my whole family and how she should have the chance to meet my family on her terms. I responded that she didn't seem to want to meet my family whenever I brought it up, so that if it were to ever happen, this was the way I'd figure it out. But she said that what I did was wrong and that she had to give my family special attention at the expense of her other tables, which I think wasn't true. Maybe I shouldn't have sprung my whole family on her in the way I did, but it went well, and I'm kind of annoyed that she can't see that. No, you are the a-hole. You were trying to put pressure on her to meet the family. If you had asked if there's a reason why she doesn't want to meet the family, and she doesn't give you an answer yet, still give her the space. You went to her place of work, and she handled it beautifully. If she was having any issues with nervousness or having to juggle meeting this family while still working her job, you are definitely the a-hole. You should have just let it go. Let her approach meeting the family in her time. Story 2. You've been randomly selected. This happened about 3 years ago while going through an airport in the U.S. I walked through the metal detector. Something must have beeped and they needed to pat me down. After a thorough pat-down, I put my shoes on and started to walk over to grab my bag. A TSA agent stops me and says, "You've been randomly selected. Please step into the body scanner." I was polite, but said that I really didn't want to get into the body scanner and asked if there was another way. The agent said that I could get a pat-down. I said, "Well, I just got a pat-down, so..." They angrily told me to pick an option. So I took 2 steps backwards to the woman who had patted me down 30 seconds ago and spread them. Again. While she was patting me down, I asked her if she found anything new. She stared daggers at me, but let me go. If these people don't realize the ridiculousness of what they're saying, then just go with it. You were polite, definitely, very good. You weren't screaming and everything, or you weren't just being bossy or anything like that. Is there another way? Well, you could get a pat-down, like the one I just got. Yeah, if they feel like they need to pat you down again for some reason, and you know nothing's changed, just do it. It's ridiculous. You just gotta go with it at this point. Story 3. Sorry, you revoked my overtime privileges yesterday. This was several years ago when I worked at a redacted big-name coffee shop. My shift was 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., and often around 1 p.m., giant groups of kids on school field trips would come through the area. This was a coffee shop located in a major California city, very close to a bunch of museums. I had been working a lot of overtime because of it, to help my coworkers through the rush. I got written up by my supervisor for doing too many overtime shifts without approval. I was explicitly informed to not work overtime again. I had lost overtime privileges until the corporation deemed I could have them again. And working overtime again prior to that would result in further disciplinary action. The day after I was written up, right as my shift ended, 3 big buses full of kids unloaded and filled the shop. At 1:30 p.m. on the dot, my watch alarm went off and I went to go clock out. The store manager who wrote to me the day prior said, "Wait, where are you going?" I reminded her that I'd lost my overtime privileges, clocked out, retrieved the shift drink I'd made for myself right before the rush, and left. The next day, I was informed my overtime privileges had been reinstated. That's all you can do. It was a power play, basically. You're costing this company money, I guess. At that point, just paying for overtime for one person is probably just nickel-diming it. But there's no better way to prove your worth than having your overtime privileges revoked and then facing something like this coming up. Get everything in writing. Cover yourself when you're working so you don't find yourself getting accused of stuff by management that you didn't do. Story 4. Landlord tried to exploit me for free labor. I'm renting a little house out past the suburbs of the city I'm currently working in. It's a little old and the appliances are a bit dated, but it was much cheaper than a 2-bedroom apartment downtown, and I move around every couple of years for work. My landlord lives out of state and doesn't have anyone local, so for the past year and a half, I haven't talked to anyone. Just pay my rent on time and keep doing my thing. About 4 months ago, plumbing issues started popping up, and 2 major appliances decided to give up the ghost. I notified my landlord via email and written letter. I rent a lot and have learned to abide by the exact wording in a lease. After several follow-up emails and phone calls, a local handyman showed up to look at everything and provide a quote. After receiving the quote for parts plus labor, the landlord told me flat out that they will not be paying for the repairs. They said that since I am an engineer, they would allow me to purchase parts, install them, and then deduct the cost of the repairs from my rent payment. They said it was either this or learn to make do. I was not super thrilled at this response. I replied back to them saying if they were willing to deduct my time and cost of the parts from my rent, that I would get started immediately. Thank you very much. They were thrilled to hear it and asked me to send receipts for their records when everything is finished. Great. Now to put together all the pieces and get to work. The first step was to file for an LLC with my current state. Next, I set up some cameras and borrowed a GoPro from one of my hiking mates. I was able to document all the repair process from me watching YouTube videos of how to do things to me making multiple runs to the parts store to get that piece I didn't know I needed. Here's the kicker. At my day job, I make over $50 an hour. That is what my time is valued at. The final bill for everything has worked out to be about 12% higher than the quoted cost, and the landlord is very upset. But my lawyer, added to the email chain, has kept them very civil. Again, document everything. This person had to have gotten some sort of written statement that, yes, this was fine to add your labor costs to everything. Just completely very well done. Especially the kicker at the end to make sure the lawyer is in on this and make sure everything's on the up and up. Brilliantly done.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 5. If you don't do the senior project, then you won't walk during graduation. Well, okay then. Back in 2013, I was a senior at a high school I had just transferred to. I had moved earlier in the year because my parents got divorced, and I made the deliberate choice to leave my old high school and move in with my dad, attending a new high school. I won't go into much detail about the why, but it was my decision to leave my mom, my old school, and my hometown in the Bay Area and move into a small apartment with my dad. This comes up later. Normally, switching schools isn't a huge deal, but it was sort of an abrupt move. I wasn't able to take any of the AP classes I normally would have taken because they all had mandatory summer projects that I wouldn't have been able to do in a week. Additionally, a week into the school year, we were told about this stupid senior project they wanted us to do. In a nutshell, there was some acronym like IMPACT or something, and each letter represented a value at the school. They wanted us to write about how impact had influenced us in our time at the school. We were then told that should we not do the senior project, we wouldn't be able to walk for graduation. I heard this and thought it was stupid for a number of reasons, not the least of which being that I had only just gotten there, so their dumb acronym didn't mean anything to me. I brought this concern up to the lady telling us about the project, and her response was that I just figure something out or don't walk. Well, okay then. I brought it up with my dad, asked if he gave a hot smeg whether or not I walked for a high school graduation. He did not. So I just figured that I wouldn't do the project. End of story, right? Wrong. You see, a few months into this senior project, they did a checkup on every senior. We just lined up in our homeroom and to talk to some lady from the principal's office and told her how close we were to being done. When I walked up, I told her that I wasn't doing it. She was confused. You're not going to do it? You have to. It's non-negotiable. No, it's not. I don't have to do it. But you won't walk if you don't do it. Yeah. Then we just sort of stared at each other, and she wrote my name down and shooed me away. I correctly assumed that this would not be the last interaction I had regarding this non-issue. Several weeks later, my suspicions were confirmed when I was pulled out of class and brought into the main office. They ushered me into the vice principal's personal office, where she made a bit of a show of pulling out some papers. She told me that the meeting was regarding a misunderstanding I may have had regarding the senior project. She was apparently told that I didn't know what to do for the assignment, and I chose to boycott the whole thing as a result. I quickly corrected her and explained that I very clearly understood what they wanted me to do, but that I thought it was stupid and wasn't going to do it. I also explained that I understood the penalty and was fine with it. She, like the First Lady, seemed confused by this course of action and just let me leave, since there wasn't really much of a conversation to be had. A few more weeks later, I got pulled out of yet another class for the same thing. Again, I'm brought up to the vice principal for a one-on-one. When I get there, she looks like the cat that ate the canary. She begins, "So I know you were in here a while ago, and you said you didn't want to do your senior project." "No," I interrupted. "I said I wasn't doing the project." "Well," she continued, "we had a chat with your mother over the phone earlier this week. She told us that she really wants you to walk to your graduation." I was quiet for a moment. I live with my dad." "Right, but your mom said she'd like to attend the ceremony and see you walk." "I don't think you get it," I stated. "I live with my dad for a reason." If there were an expression that perfectly exemplified the dial-up tone, that's the face she made. After she collected herself, I was released and headed back to class. By this point, I was mostly just not doing the project because it was dumb. But then calling a family member to strong-arm me was crossing a line. On top of that, they tried to strong-arm me using a parent with whom I was no connect. I decided right then that no matter what, I wasn't caving into their hogwash. Frack the project, frack the school, frack the weird tactics they were trying to use. Though in my anger, there was also confusion. Why the hell did these people care so damn much about one guy not doing an optional assignment? Also, I made myself very clear. So was that the end of it? Spoiler, it wasn't. A few more weeks later, I got pulled into the actual principal's office. The principal, for reference, was one of those guys that tried to make a show of being overly friendly and goofy, but to the point where it came off as superficial. When I got to his office, he was his usual extroverted self, greeted me, and sat me down. So I've heard about this whole senior project problem you've had going on. And I get it. Trust me, I really do. You're new here, so our motto hasn't had much of an impression. So after talking about it with the folks grading the projects, we think it'd be just fine if you had a modified project. Just do a project on one letter of impact and you're golden. He gave me a big warm smile. No. Sorry? He asked, still smiling. I'm not doing it. His smile was slowly fading. But you only have to do one letter. It's not really that much. Yeah, I got that. I'm still not going to do it, I stated. But you won't be able to walk on graduation day. Yep. So, what's the issue exactly? You called my mom. His mouth was open like he was going to say something, but I guess nothing came to mind, as we sat in silence for a good 20 seconds, him trying to formulate an argument and me making a Jim Halpert face. I told him if that was everything he needed to talk about, I'd be heading back to class. He didn't protest, so I just left. It was after this meeting that I eventually got some context. Apparently, California schools will shuffle principals around every few years for some reason that probably makes sense, but I don't care enough to research. Our principal was going to be switching schools after the 2013 semester had ended, and one of his big plans was to leave that high school with 100% participation in the senior projects that would otherwise not affect any final grade. He used the threat of preventing students from walking at graduation to bully everyone into doing the dumb project. Almost everyone. I stuck to my guns and refused to do it. And sure enough, after the deadline had passed, they made a big deal about how happy they were that 99.6% of students completed their senior projects, even though they were hoping for 100%. And the absolute dumbest part about this exercise in stupid, after everything was said and done, I was called in one last time to the VP's office. She told me that despite my refusal to do the senior project, they were still going to let me walk and gave me 5 tickets for friends and family. I laughed, walked out without the tickets, and didn't attend my own graduation. Too long didn't read. I was given the choice of option A or option B. I chose option B. The admins regretted giving me the option. Then it got personal. It's so hard for everyone to believe. You just know that it was going to be for some personal selfish reason on the principal's part to leave with this golden check mark on his record after he gets shuffled to a different school. And here's this one kid just sitting there saying, no, this is stupid, I'm not going to do it. I was waiting for another shoe to drop saying they weren't going to let him graduate if he did this project. And I don't think legally they would have had a stance to do this, but thankfully that wasn't the case. Just a great way to assert yourself, and especially going into college or the workforce, knowing how to take a stand.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.